Anyway, welcome. And tonight I'm recording audio. I don't have a camera set up like Steve does, so we don't have any video. Although I don't know, did I put the video on? Can't remember whether I had I do have the video on. Yeah. Not the greatest, but it'll be better than nothing. As long as I stay in front of my machine, it'll be there. Yeah. So anyway, we're gonna start by. I'm going to go through basically what a website is very briefly. I don't want to get into too much detail because I want to get to the demo, which is the last one, and show you how I developed the club website. Because I really, it took a little bit of time finding it, but once I discovered it, I was real pleased with the tool. I'd never seen anything like it quite before. But anyway, I'll explain that when I get to it. First of all, we're going to talk about what a website is, and can I build one myself? How do I get an address for the website? Where do I host it? And how do I build it? How do I build the files? And then what does it cost? Is it astronomical, or can I do it on the cheap? And then finally, I'll show you some examples of both the club website and also a self-hosted website that I host myself. So first of all, what is a website? This guy, anyone know who this guy is?
Tim Berners-Lee.
Good. Okay, we'll give him the gold star. This guy is kind of, it's Sir Tim, by the way. He's been attributed with basically coming up with the web, in terms of browsers and the use of browsers to display information and to communicate. And web pages basically are just files like .doc files, but they're .html files that are hosted on a computer somewhere, and then through your browser, which is basically what's called a server, you're able to access that data and display it in front of you on your website. The address of a web page like the www.google.com or whatever, that's referred to as the domain name. And it doesn't necessarily tell you where it's located, but it tells you what it's called. In addition to the domain name, you need actually a domain name system, a DNS, which captures or links the IP address to the domain name. So you go to the domain name, when you type in the google.com, it goes to a domain name server. It looks up that name, finds an IP address, and then routes you over to that IP address, and then displays the index.html page from that address. And the web server is where all that information is stored. That basically serves the information, and it serves it on request from a client. And you'll see a lot of this terminology when you read up about it. And at first it can be a little daunting and a little misleading, but basically there's a driver and there's a machine. So there's a client and then there's a server that responds to the client, hopefully. So how do you get a website address? How do you get the domain name? Domain names are basically controlled by an organization, an international organization called ICANN, ICANN. I guess they're a private organization, but do they have public influence? I'm not sure. You have to go read about them. Whether they're obviously a lot of governments like to try and get involved in them, but basically it came about from the universities getting together and they formed an organization. And this is the organization that's responsible for administering the domain name system. And they delegate some of that work to registrars, who are separate companies who are given the authority to issue and control domain names. So besides the large organizations like Google, Microsoft, and Amazon, they actually are their own registrar. They have the rights of a registrar as well. In addition to them, there are some smaller, what I would say, well-managed companies that you can go to and you can buy domains. GoDaddy is a real popular one, not necessarily the cheapest. It's quite popular. A couple of others that I've used, Dynadot, Namecheap, and Porkbun. It's a strange name, but it's one that I use myself. And these companies charge a small fee to reserve a domain for a fixed period of time. And by small, I mean we're talking about $1 to $10 for the first year, and then maybe 10 to 20 for the second year, and then it's an annual fee. So it's less than $1 a month, basically, to have a name. But the name doesn't do anything for you on its own. Basically, to get the website, you now have to put some information out on a server, and then tell it to use that name to get to the website. So this is where you host the website. And there are various companies, organizations that specialize in hosting websites. There are what I call website builders that will actually build it and host it for you. There are cloud-based hosting services like the operated virtual private service. Some of the big ones, they're specialized in web hosting. Here's a WebGator, Hostinger, and there's a few others. We'll talk about them in a little bit. And then there's what I call cloud-based computer service providers. They don't just host the website, but they'll give you a bit of a computer to work with through the cloud. The big companies like Google Web Services, Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, they all do that at a cost. But there are some lower cost companies like Linode, DigitalOcean, two that are pretty popular, and they're worldwide, and they're you may not have heard of them before, but they're quite large. They've got a lot of servers scattered around the world. And then you can self-host. You can put all these files on a server in your home and then open your internet up to incoming traffic so they can come in and request your website from the server. So that's about hosting the website. Now, how do I go about building it? How do I get those files in there? Well, first of all, you can go out and you can hire someone. And the minute you register a domain, you'll find out who they are, because you'll get lots of emails, you'll get telephone calls, because you have to give them a telephone number, from some guy in India saying, I see you've got xyz.com, do you need help developing your website? So you get lots of unsolicited help as soon as you register the domain. But it can be the most expensive way to go. There are also website builders. There are several options available, and these are quite good, and they're not unduly expensive. They say they're free, but don't believe them. They're not. They may be free for a month, or free for a fixed period of time, or free for a very, very limited service, but they're not free. And they're kind of like buy the spec home. You know, they come to you and they deliver you, here's a plan, you know, or here's 5 plans, which ones do you want? And there's no customization involved. But for some people, that can work out quite well. You know, like Squarespace, for example, is very popular with photographers. I mean, they specialize in that particular area. There's one called Blogger, which is very popular with people who just want to blog. So if you've got a specialist need, there may be a spec service that will fit that need.
Now, the websites they design are theirs.
That's the other thing, is they are owned by them, so they're not owned by you. So you lose some rights, and you can lose the whole website if things go down in the handbasket. Now, most of them are pretty reputable. I would say like Wix and Squarespace particularly, they're pretty reputable. You shouldn't have any problems with they're,
It's really good for business purposes.
they can be good for businesses, but not necessarily. My son's a realtor, okay? There are some good owner-operators that develop websites, and the top one, I say it's the most expensive. It's also the most specialized sometimes. And there are some people that specialize in real estate websites or restaurant websites. They charge you a service cost. It's going to be more than a website builder, but it's not astronomical. And they can be quite good. They're up to date. They maintain everything for you, so it can save you a lot of hassle. It's kind of like using an accounting service or something like that.
With Squarespace, you can integrate payment methods.
Yes.
That's very handy.
Yes. Now, the third category, I would say, are the design tools. And I put a few up there, and I'm going to come back to those because they fall into different categories. But they're the ones that are well known are like WordPress. WordPress is very well known, but it's what I call a content management system. We'll discuss that in a moment. And there's others like Jekyll and Gatsby that are basically static websites, generators. And they're like a compiler, if you will. You actually feed stuff into a program. You create the website offline, and then it compiles it, converts it to HTML for you. And the advantage is it can be very fast as a website, so it can have some benefits. And there's this hybrid that I come across called Ghost, which I'll discuss a little bit later. The other thing about these is some of them, like WordPress and Ghost, will actually host the website for you as well. So you don't have to worry about hosting. Costs you a bit more, but they'll actually do the hosting for you.
And the upside to that is they're handling security.
They handle security, they handle backups, and right, all that type of stuff. And with these, you don't have to have a basic knowledge of HTML and CSS and so on. And then the final one, of course, is you can do it yourself. But to do it yourself, you have to be able to write the code. Basically, there are three. For the front, what I call the front end, what you see, there's HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Those are the three that are used to display the page. On the back end, there's maybe a database, or there's a high-level language like PHP that basically takes stuff from the front, what it sees, and does some manipulation of it and throws it back to the front. So those are back-end services or back-end programs. This is kind of what you pay for when you hire a consultant.
Well, Paul, I've always found it fantastic is the history of it.
Oh, yeah.
When it first started, it was serving pages. You had a
When the history is absolutely fascinating.
and it's
Yeah.
happened in a very compressed time.
Yes,
So-
yes,
And you can
yeah.
see
And not only that, the third bullet here, the website design tools, with the exception of maybe WordPress, these have all come about in the last 5 years. It's just been in the last 5 or maybe 10 years that there's been a rapid escalation.
What's the one that replaced Dreamweaver? They bought out Dreamweaver. Which company is that? That's been around years.
Adobe owns it now.
Another name
Yeah.
for Dreamweaver. It begins with T.
They still call it.
Do they?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
Dreamweaver's been around for 15 years.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Did it?
Anyway, we'll talk about what it costs you. The consultant, you just have to. I can't give you any kind of idea. The upper limit is unlimited, and the lower limit is whatever you want to pay. Maybe a minimum of $20 or something like that a month. And usually, like I said, they're specialized. The better ones, particularly, are specialized in a particular business area. Domain costs, well, I already told you that typically you could get a domain for $1 for the first year, and then after that you pay somewhere in the $10 to $20 a year for it. And you can save significantly by accepting what I would call odd. The .com and the .org, they're called first tier. So you buy in the second tier, but the first tier is controlled by governments and by the big boys like Amazon and Google. They control the .coms and the .orgs. Yeah.
EDU.
Huh?
EDU.
EDUs, yeah, EDUs, the gov, yeah. And then the second tier is what you buy. And there are some, what I call odd third tiers that they'll sell. There's like XYZ is a real popular one. The one I use is .club because it's real cheap. And these come cheaper. If you're going to use like a Marriott.com, forget it. You know, you can't even get it. Of course, the other thing is when you do register a website, I know with Porkbun, there's something you could click in there, and it says, if you want to sell this website, how much do you want to sell it for? So they'll actually, right up front, give you the opportunity to start advertising that name. So if you've got a good name, like I use paulstech.com. Paulstech.com is, I don't know how I ended up with it, but I just put a K instead of a C, and I ended up with paulstech.com. And I've had numerous people want to buy it.
I had one stolen from me.
Did you?
I
Yeah.
registered My Family Cloud.
Yeah.
A .net, Org,
Yep.
everything, and somebody stole the cloud one on me. They waited until the expiry date.
You wait, that's what happens,
And
yeah.
I went in there.
They wait till the expiration date and then they bounce in. So you need to either put it on automatic. You can put it on automatic, or you can.
Mine wasn't on it.
Wasn't on? They still stole it. Oh shit!
I got all the other ones still.
Yeah.
I figured I'd sell myfamily.cloud for millions of dollars.
Yeah. Okay. The third one is we talk about website builders. The popular ones are Wix.com. These Bluehost.com, Squarespace.com, Ionis. They have pricing that. Okay, they have usually a free Getcha type tier. Some of them do. Not all of them these days. They used to. They've gotten less popular now. But they start around $5 a month. And they go up depending on what the service is that they're offering. And usually you pay around $50 a month. $50 a month you get a full-blown web store. So they handle all the, if you've got a business, you're making something, you're making pillowcases and designing them or whatever, and you want to sell them, this is a way that you can do it.
MyPillow.com.
Yeah, whatever. Okay, so more on cost. What I call the hybrid website builders. This is like WordPress and Ghost. These, as well as providing tools, they also provide a hosting and a more all-in service, kind of like a Wix.com. Ghost starts around $9 a month, and it's a flat fee. And WordPress has a free but very limited tier, and then it has a flat $15 a month after that. So they're not expensive, but and they take away the hassle of having to maintain the website. And then you've got the builder tools. Most of these are free. You can download them and you can use them, and you don't get into any cost until you start hosting. And they fall into what I call two types. There are more, but there are two basic types. There's the content management type system, and these are kind of older, more traditional website designs that don't necessarily take account of the being able to see it on your iPhone or iPad and so on.
They don't scale.
They don't scale well necessarily. No, I mean WordPress is pretty good. Depends on which one you use, but a lot of them don't scale. And then they have a back-end language, a back-end database, usually MySQL, but it doesn't have to be MySQL. It can be MariaDB or PostgreSQL. These are two other popular ones. And the CMS ones are like WordPress is the most well-known. Ghost, I put Ghost in there, although Ghost isn't a pure CMS. It uses a database, but it doesn't use it in the same way WordPress does. It doesn't manage your content on the database. It manages like your your sign in and sign out. It manages your passwords and all that kind of stuff in the database. But WordPress actually manages the content of the database. The others, like Joomla and Drupal, are kind of competitors of WordPress. They've been around a long while. Blogger is a kind of a more recent one that specializes primarily in blogging. And it is, I'm told, that I haven't used it, a very good tool for blogging. Blogging, by the way, is like keeping a web diary. It's like if you want to keep a diary on and you write in it every day, you can keep a blog and write in it every day. And you can share it with your family, your friends, and whoever. And then there are what I call static. And I think of these in terms of compilers, because of my background, I guess. And these, when you write whatever you're going to write, and you put it into Hugo or Jekyll, it doesn't actually go to the website like that. Hugo and Jekyll actually have a little inbuilt compiler that takes what you write and then compiles it and puts it into HTML files so that it can be presented. The benefit is that it makes for a very, very fast, responsive website. So if you look at some of these WordPress websites, particularly some of the older club websites, you click on it to go to the next page and it takes you forever to display the page because it's going out to the database, it's searching around, finding what you want, throwing it back at you. This takes time. Whereas Jekyll, it's instant. It's pretty much instant. So a little bit about cloud services. AWS, and Google and Azure, they're like the old cell phone service. It's almost impossible to figure out what it's going to cost. They have, as soon as they say you can go to this click here, and we provide you a tool to figure out what it's going to cost. That's a bad sign. That's a bad sign. and they charge by the minute, by the bit, by the byte, whatever. And it's very hard to figure out what it's going to cost you. Unless you're a big business, I'd steer clear of them. Google, of the three, probably Google is the simplest to understand, and they do have a pretty nice free tier. Actually, Amazon, the AWS, has a good free tier as well, but it's very limited on what you can do. And then once you get into the paid model, it's a nightmare.
It's so reminiscent of the old mainframe days.
Yes. They buy CPU and bits and bytes and God knows what. Yes. The services, the computer services, the online services, the big ones are DigitalOcean and Linode. Also, I use Vultr, which is a little bit less expensive than the other two. And I'll come across one, Fast Comet is one that I've been using for hosting Ghost. But Fast Comet is more specialized. But these three, you basically buy either a part of a computer CPU or you buy the entire CPU or multiple CPUs. You pay, depending on how many CPUs or partial CPUs you're using.
People that want to learn different languages.
Yes, it's very good if you don't want to stress your own computer out and you want to learn something. They're extremely good for learning that. You can fire up if you want to know what Linux looks like, you can fire up a Ubuntu 20.04 in Linode and play with it to your heart's content, and then discard it and fire up, a BSD or whatever, and play with it and throw it away. So it's very good for trying stuff out. And it runs around $10 a month minimum, which it's not a whole lot when you're paying $50 to $100 for your internet service anyway. Yeah. There are also the web hosting services like Hosting, HostGator, and so on. They specialize. They're like DigitalOcean, but they specialize in web hosting. They basically give you, instead of giving you a CPU, they give you an Apache or a Nginx web server, and then you basically put your website on that, and you can expect to pay around $5 a month minimum on those. And then there's the home network. If you really want to mess with it and put it in your home, what do I need to do it in my home? Well, I need some kind of server computer, and it can be as little as something like this. And I'd say typically you can expect to pay somewhere between $600 and $1,500, depending on the spec of the server. You can pay less, but if you want something that's you're going to operate 24/7 and you can rely on it, you're going to have to pay somewhere around.
You have to have hosting software too, equivalent to like Apache and
Yes.
You have to have some kind
Yes.
of hosting software.
Yes. Yeah. You put Nginx or actually I do mine in Docker, which I'll come to in a minute. Most everything I do is with Docker, and then I fire up a Docker with Ubuntu or Arctic Linux I use quite a lot, and then Nginx. Apache's got a Docker container, yeah. So a lot of them are done like that.
I think the whole piece that people sometimes don't understand is how limited you are with upload speeds.
Yes.
And when you're serving,
Yes.
you're very dependent on upload.
Yes, because basically you're paying for this gigabit service, but that's only download, that's not upload. The upload is now like 12, 15 or something,
You
yeah.
have photographs and things
Yeah,
like that. They take
yeah,
a long time.
yeah,
and
yeah.
that's-
So that's why you go out to these outside services. Depends what you want. I mean, like, I host my, you'll see, I'll show you in a minute. I host my password server. I've got that on the server, and I host this small kind of blogging website. But basically, that's a toy. It's just what I've been playing around with. And you need a high-speed, reliable internet connection. Basically, you need a good router.
And a fixed IP address.
Well, you don't have to have a fixed IP address. I use Cloudflare, and then my PFSense uses DDNS to keep Cloudflare up to date. That's another subject, but basically, yeah. If I might want to talk about that, when you typically your home server from Grandy or Astound or whoever it is, they provide a dynamic internet address. They say it's dynamic. Actually, it stays pretty constant, but they are allowed to change it, and they can change it whenever they feel like it. So what you do if you want to host a website, you don't want that address changing. So basically, what you do is you use a service called DDNS, which basically sends to your DNS provider, whoever you're using for DNS, for your domain, to manage your domain. You send them what your new address is, and they keep it up to date. So I use Cloudflare, and on my PFSense router, I've got a DNS running on there, which updates my Cloudflare address dynamically. It's not instant, but it's better than having it suddenly drop on you.
Otherwise, your server disappears.
Yeah,
Every
right. So that's okay. We talk about the Robson Ranch website. Basically, I went out and I got the domain robsontech.club. It cost 99 cents for the first year, and then every subsequent year is $10 a year. And I'm using Pork Bun, and I'll show you Pork Bun in a minute. For hosting, I'm using an outfit called fastcomment.com. I know I haven't spoken about them before, because they're kind of a hybrid. They're a bit like Linode and DigitalOcean, but they're also specialized, and they specialize in ghost websites. So their own website is actually a ghost website, but you don't have to run Ghost on it. You can run Ubuntu on it as well. But they gave me a deal of $35 for 1 year, which is pretty damn good. That's $3 a month for a year. And then after that, it increases to $119 a year, which is also not that high, $10 a month. So I figure that's a pretty good deal. And so far, I haven't had a problem with it. And the service is extremely good. I've had to ask them a few questions, and they're extremely knowledgeable. When you call them, you don't get someone in India or Taiwan or the Philippines. You get someone in Portland, Oregon, or wherever they are. They're extremely knowledgeable and helpful. And yeah, the Ghost development environment is what I used to build it. That you can download for free. So you get that for free. So, without further ado.
And the Ghost development environment will compile to Apache or
Yes.
anything
Yes.
else?
Yes. Basically, that's what I've done. It's kind of like WordPress. I'll show you it in a little bit. Let me just go. This is the Robson Ranch Tech Club. Fortunately, it works. I can show you here if you click up here. This is actually going to my home.
Probably shouldn't have done that in Clear.
So this actually goes to my home and it shows me the logger. Well, that's because I'm in the wrong place. Well, it says I'm not in the development area. But anyway, this is the website. The back, this is what you see. The way it's managed is through a back-end management tool, which you get to by typing Ghost. You type, if you notice, I type /Ghost up there. This takes you into the back-end environment. Now I can go with go to my Bitwarden. It automatically finds that one, signs me in, and I'm in. So what I did there is I went to my home server. My home server is hosting Bitwarden. So that actually went out to my home server, sitting in my home, grabbed the password, placed it in there, and brought up the dashboard. This is the dashboard that you get when you put Ghost out there. And basically, it's all about pages, everything, or about posts. Everything is on a post, basically. When you create a new item, you create a new post. The kind of the prettiness of it is about the template, and basically what you do. What's this? If you go to the tools down here in design, this gives you the option to change the theme down here, down the bottom here. You can actually change the theme. So, and it gives you a whole bunch, like WordPress, gives you a whole bunch of themes to choose from. And you can change these on the fly. Basically, once you've got it downloaded and in amongst all your files, you don't have to go and find a theme. You can and upload it. You can actually go here, and you can see I've got my theme that's active right now is this one called Lyra, but I can activate this one called, I hope I don't mess it up, but I can activate that one, and that'll actually give me a totally different. If I come back to here, I view the site. It'll give the website a totally different look. Maybe you didn't notice it because some of it is pretty subtle, but it's giving it a totally different look.
So could you go to just a page you're going to create and show us what that looks like with the tools?
Yes, I'm going to do that in a minute.
Okay. Thank you.
I just wanted to show you that you could, you have the option to modify the different designs. So I'm going to go back here to the theme, and I want to put it back to Lyra. Otherwise, Steve will get all upset. So I'll back to that one. And you can see you can play around with all sorts of different themes. But go back to settings. Go back to settings now. If you're right here now, you can create a post or you can modify a post. So basically, the whole website is developed around posts. If you look at the website, You can see down here I've got a whole bunch of posts. These are posts. Also, I'll show the menu across the top. This basically filters some of the posts. It filters the posts out. And the way you do that is, if you go to the tools again, you come over to navigation. This basically is the navigation tool. And you can see, like for the Drone Club, I'm filtering out everything that's tagged drone. So if I create a post and I tag it drone, it gets filtered, and when I click that Drone Club tab at the top, it only shows me the Drone Club posts. Anyway, let's go back to posts. Now,
just wondering if it would be helpful to show a page that you're going to create and the tools you have available.
Yeah.
Templates and things that are there.
I'm gonna do that now because I want to do one for this meeting eventually.
Oh, okay.
Basically, I did that a bit quick. When you create a new post, you have the option. Obviously, you've got a title that we're going to put in. I'm going to put. Oops. I guess it's going to do that with us. So you want to build a website. And you can add an image. Now, what Ghost does, it has a free image gallery, which actually is pretty good. So you can actually either add one that you have on your computer, and you basically navigate to it, or you can click on here, and it brings up this Unsplash thing. And you can search on here, so I can search like website. And we'll see if we can find something that kind of fits. Of course, it's probably not going to find anything. Let's narrow it down a bit. Oh, it's come up with a web. Okay, that's kind of cool. Yeah. You never know what you're going to get. So say I want to use this one. So I'm going to insert that image. And it puts that image in there. So now when I start writing, if I click this plus sign, I've got a whole bunch of options that are pretty cool. I've got a whole bunch of options open to me. I can put an image in there. I can use Markdown, which I explain is probably what I'm going to use. I can actually write it in HTML if I feel like it. I can create an image gallery, put a divider in. So that's basically if you want to separate a web page up. We can bookmark it. We can do image content. We can throw a video in there. Although it's got these, what you'll find is I use Markdown. If you're not familiar with Markdown, Markdown is, it was developed in the 90s, I guess, like a lot of these things. But it's a very simple text-based program that basically you can use to simplify developing the HTML. If the HTML sees the Markdown file, it's very easy for it to create to HTML. And it uses, doesn't use a whole lot of commands. If you think, I've got my Markdown cheat sheet out. Yeah, I use my Markdown cheat sheet. It's only got, you can see, it's not got a lot of add-ons. See, these are commands that you can use within the writing, and there's not very many of them. I mean, the ones that I use a lot are like headings. I'll use that one in a minute. You can bold stuff with 2 asterisks. Headings are with, you can do a level 1, level 2, level 3 heading with a pound sign. You can do line breaks, but anyway, that's.
Paul, is this in lieu of CSS?
Huh?
Is this in lieu of using CSS?
Yes. Yes. Markdown. Markdown basically, you can learn CSS and you can do it all in HTML with CSS, but it gets extremely complicated. If you use Markdown, you don't have to worry about that. That's where these static sites, like, I'm digressing a bit, but it's, if you use Jekyll or Hugo, these are the sites that are called static. They're static site generators. They generate the HTML. They use the Markdown language. So basically you write your post using the Markdown language, which is basically simple text with a few kind of little commands in there, and I'll show you one in a minute. And then it'll convert that to HTML for you. Hugo will. So if I want to put a heading in here, I'll put a heading is like, well, I thought maybe it's not in Markdown. I wasn't in Markdown. Never mind. I won't do that. I'll just do it as plain text. You can write it in plain text as well. So this will be Monday, 9th April, May. God, I'm a month out already. Computer club, I want to call it computer club. I can't spell. Oops. Okay, so I put all my stuff in there. Put all whatever images I want in there. Add whatever movies I want to add in there. And then you can go over to this little tab here, and it gives you, this is like, gives you a bunch of tools, a bunch of settings. And the ones that are important to me are like these tags. And I've already put some in there. I should have one called Tech Club. Thought I had one called Tech Club, maybe General. Tech Club, there it is at the bottom. So I put a tag in there that says Tech Club. And then what that'll do is it'll put that underneath that tab on the main page. Put the author down here. There's some other stuff you can do down in here. You can actually inject code. This is why I kind of was attracted by Ghost, because you can either use Ghost very simply, like I'm doing here, or you can get into the detail and you can actually inject HTML code into the web page. Once you're satisfied with it, you then publish it. Come up here and publish, and you set it to go live. Publish it to go live. Publish it. Okay, it's published. So now when I go back to my original website, we'll get rid of all this stuff. Let's get rid of all this. When you go to the web page now, you'll see, there it is. You'll see my post that I just created comes up first on my website. And what we're going to do, we'll go in and we'll edit that between now and the next day or two. Once we get some pictures and I get my sound script and whatever video looks like.
Can you show the HTML? Just reveal code to show the HTML?
Oh, yeah.
So they can see what that looks like?
It's probably best if I put it down at the bottom of there. Where's the one down there? Yeah, this is what it looks like. This is the HTML code that corresponds to this web page. So you got an HTML tag. These are called tags. Anything with this thing around it is called a tag. You've got a header and you've got a body. And this basically, this little arrow here means there's stuff below there. And these are divs, and this class site wrapper, that's where your CSS comes into play. That means there's a cascading style sheet. So, I mean, it gets mind-boggling after a while.
If you look at the history, it comes from the press industry.
Yeah.
So when they're doing markups on pages to send off to their type machines.
Yeah, yeah.
And in those cases, you had one page.
Yeah.
So users didn't want just one page, they wanted others. So then you came up with windows that you did in the page, and you had multiple pages. And
Well, you see, this is the other thing that I like about Ghost. The thing about Ghost is unlike WordPress, it's been developed in the last 5 years. So it was developed so that it can be used, and I can pull it up on my iPhone, that same web page. I can pull it up, you can go to it now, go to Safari, and you can go to the web page, Robson Tech.club. And it's there. I don't know whether you can see it, okay? And it, instead of having, doesn't look quite the same as that, but it's there. And it's got the tabs along the top, and you just scroll through it like this. Now that, 5 years ago, that was a programming nightmare to do something like that, to get it to work on a device like this. Because basically, it presents it in a different way on here than it does on an iPad, than it does on your computer. It doesn't, right. And then you got to deal with Safari or Chrome or the different browsers, Edge, which is another Chrome browser. So there's a whole bunch of aspects to it. The other thing about Ghost is, you see there's a subscribe button here. I don't actually use that, but the way Ghost has been designed is you can actually create a payment option on it. Now you have to pay for it because it doesn't actually, Ghost doesn't host it. It's another service that hosts it. But if you want to monetize your website, you can. So you can subscribe, and then depending on your level of membership, how much you paid, you'll be able to see different content. And Ghost enables you to do all that through. Remember I pulled up that site preferences there. Through those site preferences, you can define who sees that post and who doesn't see it, depending on their, which tier they're in. There are only 3 tiers, so it's pretty basic. Unless you want to go to WordPress and get something real complex, this is quite a simple way to do it. And it's free, and you don't have to learn HTML. It's nice. Now the other thing is you can in these. I'll show you just what I did here, so you can see it. If you go to down to my little tool here, and I go to navigation, what the calendar has done, and what the join has done, it's going to those 2 pages, join and calendar. And if I look at pages, there's one called join. That page is actually creates and it's got some HTML in it, I'm sorry, but it creates the join feature so that if you want to join the Tech Club or the Joe Rogan Club, you go in here, you can fill out your email address and click join. And if I go back, go back to my main page, let's go back here. If I click join, that's how it gets displayed. So what you saw was the kind of the raw code. This is how it gets displayed. And if I fill out my email address, I won't fill out mine because I think I've used all mine. But if you fill out an email address, if you just want to join the tech group, you click on here and it goes to Groups.io. The calendar actually goes to Groups.io. Now, it happens that I was already logged in. If I wasn't logged in, you'd see the Groups.io login here. But the calendar goes automatically to Groups.io. It also, if you're just using Ghost on its own and you do this, it doesn't move off of the Ghost website. It stays on the Ghost website. I can't remember how I did it, but there's some code in here that causes it to go and create its own, creates its own page. There's the join there, and I hit calendar and it created its own page. If I hadn't done my back-end stuff in there, it would have, the default is to not jump off and create a new page. And I don't like
So
that.
repage the same.
It would have been on the same page, and you wouldn't be able to see this. You'd have to back up to get to the main page again. So I didn't like that, so I just did it that way. Login doesn't do anything. This is either login or subscribe. One of them, I think, gives you an error message. Yeah, that one gives you an error message. Subscribe may do something. Nothing. Doesn't do anything. Okay, so they're just there for good looks.
Welcome to the end of the internet.
Right. So that's what I got. I said I would show you my home one as well, because it's interesting in that this is hosted on. I should go to Fast Comment, so you can see the files. This is the service that I've used for hosting the website. It's called Fast Comment, and you can look at the pricing and plans. Is $2.95 a month with a coupon. Say I got a deal. Mine was less than $2, but and then it goes up depending on what you want. But I found this gives me plenty of everything that you need. If I want to do a client login, I do client login, and now I go to my password, so I can never remember passwords. myfastcomment.com, using z4.gmx.com. I got z4@gmx.com. Okay, this basically has all the information about the domain. What I'm looking for is, I thought it was one of these. Where the hell is it? Trying to get to it. Shoot, I've forgotten.
And can you do a domain lookup from there?
Huh?
Or do you have to go out?
No, I was trying to get to.
Sure, get a registered domain, it would ask you that query.
I thought it was one of these. Says support to
I
get
wonder if you can do a
active
domain
products.
lookup.
Oh, there it is. Okay, that's what I was looking for. The access panel. Okay, so I can go to the access panel, enter your master password. Hopefully that's the right one. Yeah. This, if you're familiar with it, this is, what's it called? cPanel. cPanel. And this is quite common if you go to a lot of these hosting devices, GoDaddy and people like that. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to, where is it? Tunnel. There we go. When in doubt, go to the tunnel. This actually takes me deep into my website. And if I do an ls, this you can see what's in there. If I do this www, default HTML is on there. Robson, okay. Change directory to Robson. It's Robson. We look at Robson. This is basically what the website looks like in the background. I'm going to do a change directory to Robson. You want me to do -LA so I can see it. Most of it is in content. So if I look in content, this basically has got all the files and the images, all the settings and the themes. If you go into content themes, whoops, didn't work. is why I prefer to do it on the Mac, and because it's not filling out.
Text.
Yes, I know, but the terminal on the Mac, I can just do the tab and it fills it out for me. I can't do it here. So you can see basically, you remember we pulled up those themes? There they are right there. So Casper is basically the default theme. That's what, when you first use Ghost, you won't see these two. All you'll see is Casper. Casper is their default theme, which in and of itself is quite a nice theme. And then I modified it, I call it Robson Tech theme, so I've got some modifications in there. And the one I'm using right now is Lyra, which I quite like. I've also modified that, so you can go in and you can play with themes as well, which is how I get that calendar to come up and stuff like that in the right place. So that's where it's kind of like, if you're familiar with Jekyll or Hugo and those languages, that's why I say it's hybrid. It's kind of like working with some of those static file generators. You can modify things on the fly, and then it kind of recompiles it for you. But you don't have to do that, which is the beauty of Ghost, is you don't have to do any of this stuff. You can stay at a high level, and you can work with just the template, and it works fine. So anyway, that's...
So if you had Apache running locally, you would just, Ghost would still talk to it?
Yeah, I'll show you that now. It's not Paul's Tech. I'm going to have to do blog, otherwise it will get confused. This is my website. Hopefully this will work. I'm using blog.paulstech.com because in my router I've got what's called a reverse proxy, and it looks for incoming messages. So it'll be looking for anything with paulstech.com on, and if it says blog.paulstech.com, it sends it to my server, to the Docker on my server that's called blog.paulstech.com. So having said all that, yes, okay, it goes there. Huh?
And there's magic.
Magic, yes. Yes. And you can see, I haven't developed this, but I did this so you can at least see that it works. Okay, and it's the same kind of thing. This is a different template. It's not the same, it's not Lyra. I think this is Casper. I don't know, what is it? What I'm using. But the same principle. Go in here, and we type Ghost out the back end. It'll say sign in. Oh God, I hope I've got the right sign in. Oh, okay, very similar. So you can see it's already looking similar. And now I'm not looking at Fast Comet over here out in the cloud. This is sitting on my server underneath my desk at home. So all those files. And if we come down here and we go to design and we go to change theme, see what I've got. You can see I've been playing. That one that you saw was called editorial, but there's a bunch of other themes you can play with to kind of change the look and feel of the website. And you can, all of these down here you can upload, and if you go to GitHub you'll find a bunch more as well. But there are some standard ones down here.
Do you edit them in HTML or do you edit them in
But
Photoshop?
I edit them, basically I edit them in, I'm using Terminal mostly, but sometimes I'll use, what do you call it? Oh, God, I forgot the names. Another problem with getting old. Huh? No, not Lightroom.
Image editing?
No, text editing. I use a text editor. God, the big one.
Notepad CC is
No, not Notepad CC is if you're on a a Windows machine. But, oh shoot, where are we? God, I can't see the damn thing. See some of my stuff down here.
Text edit.
I got Rune running on that server as well, but I don't have it open. Visual Studio Code. I use Visual Studio Code predominantly. The thing about Visual Studio Code is a great text editor, and you can also attach it to through your network. I can basically use this and SSH into my main server from my Mac, and I can edit all those files using Visual Studio Code. And basically, yes, I do edit those files. That's where it says, if it says modified on that theme, I've been in there and I played around with them. They're fairly easy to edit. There's not a whole lot to it. There's a few areas to watch out for, but basically, it's pretty straightforward. You edit the theme. As long as you stay with the theme, you're okay. You can go outside the theme because there's some kind of higher level stuff that kind of manages it. Like the calendar, for example, I had to go to a higher level to manage that. But within the theme, you can modify pretty much anything. So you can make this theme look totally different. The theme itself is just, yeah, it's just.
If you change a post, the HTML on the post, and you work on the post later, does it wipe out your changes?
No, the posts are separate. The posts are basically marked down. They're kept separately. So when you change the theme, your theme is, well, it's difficult to describe it.
But if you change HTML on the post,
Basically, what you have is you have the main kind of area of Ghost, which manages everything, and within that there's one directory called posts, and all the posts are in there, and that's outside of the theme.
so is that one big HTML file, the post
No.
itself?
Now let me show you. How did I get to it? Fast comment. I was on fast comment. Now I've got to remember, there it is down there.
Like individual pages, I think, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Let me show
Yeah,
you.
each one's a
So
separate.
if you make a change inside one of those,
It's probably stored locally at that point, so they have
It-
their library of stuff.
This is
That's
Yeah.
read-only.
But you link from your main theme
Sure.
to all those posts. I mean, they're each.
no
just wondering if you change one of those files and then you edit it through the tool later, is it gonna wipe out?
no. If you look at content, okay. I've got one called themes down here, but there's also one called data and files. I can't remember which one it is. Oops.
All you're doing is linking to those pages from your.
Yes,
theme.
yes,
So when you
yes.
modify a page, it's still gonna be linked from your theme to that page. So whatever changes you make to that page will still appear when you click on the link from your theme.
I can't get to it. I've got the wrong. Oh shit! It's not data. It's 2022. 2022/3. Oh, that was just an image. Okay, that's. Anyway, basically, one of these in here. I'm not going to go find it right now. But one of these files here. One of these directories has got all your posts in it. I was trying to find it.
Okay.
When you change a theme, you're not just touching that directory.
Right.
So once you've put the post in there, it stays there. How that post gets presented is what the theme does. The theme actually goes out and grabs that post and presents it in a certain manner. And that's kind of the beauty of it, is you can modify that theme and you can make the website look totally different. But the basic information, the posts haven't changed. They're still sitting there. Is that basically answering your question or not?
No
yeah.
worries.
Yeah,
I got it.
yeah.
Thank you.
So it's really quite simple, and to me it's pretty smart the way they've done it. It reminds me a lot. I used to program a lot with Jekyll. I used to use Jekyll a hell of a lot about 10 years ago when it first came out. And I was enthralled with it because it blew the socks off of WordPress. People were using WordPress for stuff that they shouldn't be using WordPress for, and their websites were taking an hour and a day to print themselves and blow up. And then I'd use Jekyll and produce some posts and throw them into Jekyll, and it would just go. And that's what Ghost does. Those Ghost files come up in no time at all. When you click on here, it comes up almost instantly. I mean, it's really, really, really fast when you click on the posts.
But you don't typically have to worry about all the Linux stuff and all the directories. You just work with your posts right in
Yeah.
this interface.
Yeah, you work with the post. You don't have to worry about HTML or CSS or any of that stuff. You just work with your post.
Or the Linux terminals.
Or the Linux terminal stuff. Yeah,
Just do it right from the
Right.
interface of Ghost.
right.
If you have pictures, it puts it into the images.
Yes.
They're not so-
Yes, images will go straight in. No problem. I'd show you some.
No, just curious.
Yeah, that's-
I have to address the images, but
Right.
with the waveform, it's great.
Right. Now, when you create the post, you have the option to put the image. Actually, you can either click. Well, let me go to.
Embed or reference.
Well, there's different ways to do it. Actually, image. Some things go straight in. Let me just play. If you go to this post here and I want to edit it, I can go and edit it. Okay. So say I want to put an image in here. Well, I was watching that. Oh, that's a ham radio site. Where's that? Where was it? We were watching it earlier. Here it is. Okay. So I grab that link up there from YouTube. Okay. Come on, see. I come back. Now I've got to find the damn thing. Where was I? There I was. You can either come here and you can go down to videos, or you can just paste it, and it pastes straight in.
So it's embedded in
Yeah. I mean, what could be simpler and easier than that,
So cool.
Huh?
So cool.
Isn't it cool? I mean, for someone who's come from
Well,
the...
no, yeah.
There's someone who's come from I learned assembler on an 8086, and now this stuff is just mind-boggling. I mean, I remember my old Trash 80 changing it to 40 characters to 80 characters and thinking, whoa, and now you got this.
It's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, so it's really great.
Can you size those images from there?
Huh?
Can you size the images if you had a bunch of...
No, that's one thing Ghost doesn't do naturally.
You
Now,
go to the HTML and do it.
yes.
Okay.
Yes, you can go into the post. You can where it said create HTML down there. You can actually create the HTML, put the image in there, and resize it. That's one thing I don't like about Ghost is I can't click on the border here and resize it. That's what you get, But that's the downside. It's not a big deal. And if you really want to play with it, you can go into the source and you can play with it. Yeah. Yeah. You can manage your own headache, yes. Yeah. So, I mean, if you're just doing a simple blog or a club website like this one or whatever, or even if you're into e-commerce, Ghost is really worth considering, I think, if you've got
Very nice.
anything.
Yeah, that's so much easier than the Macromedia stuff or Dreamweaver.
Yeah.
Drupal, all that stuff.
Drupal and yeah, those things. Yeah. So, anyway, that's it, I think. I think I'm done.